The first alert pulsed through Nexus 01 like a heartbeat gone wrong, sharp, urgent, impossible. Commander Rian Salas opened the holograph as the bridge dimmed to combat shading. A star in the Mullen Reach had collapsed without warning. Not faded. Not flared. Collapsed, silently, instantly, and against every physical law known to humanity. A cold whisper filled the command tier as the crew absorbed the anomaly. Rian studied the spectral readout, jaw set in a thoughtful line. The light signature showed no supernova, no gravitational wobble, no precursor waves. Just a vanishing point in the dark. "Run it again," he ordered. Lieutenant Haru swept her interface. Same result. Collapse time, 0.1 seconds. Stars don't do that, murmured Chief Strategist Alden. Which is why we're leaving immediately, Rian replied. His voice stayed controlled, but beneath it lay a sharpening curiosity that felt like the return of a long-buried instinct. Humanity had waited a century for a sign, any sign, that the galaxy hadn't written them off. This was louder than 1,000 hails. A second alert pulsed. This one froze everyone. A long-dormant human satellite, positioned near the collapsed star, had just broadcast a set of encrypted packets last used during the Quiet Wars. The files were marked with a designation Rian hadn't expected to see again: Silence Protocol Root Key. He opened the channels. Static line coordinates rushed across the air, coordinates leading to a research outpost humanity believed destroyed 97 years earlier. Then came the message, cracked and trembling as though torn from a broken throat. "Solace Command, anyone, they're not gone, we're still here." Haru's eyes widened. "That station was wiped out during the first border push." "So we were told," Rian said quietly. He replayed the fragment. Someone was alive. Someone knew the truth about humanity's forced isolation. Alden straightened. "This could be bait." Rian nodded. "Which means we treat it as truth until proven otherwise." As he spoke, the bridge's vast starfield display expanded. The collapsed star's coordinates lit up with faint energy residue, something like an afterimage, except sharper, more deliberate. A signature carved into space itself. Rian stepped closer. "Haru, magnify the center by 4. The view zoomed into a grainy lattice of fractured light. A geometric sequence pulsed faintly across the remnants. Not natural. Not random. Recognizable. A Quiet War encryption sigil. Haru whispered. "Why would a dying star broadcast a military code?" Rian didn't answer immediately. His mind moved through old briefings, classified archives, and the unspoken history of the last century. Humanity hadn't retreated out of fear. They retreated out of uncertainty. Someone interfered with communication networks during the final months of the Quiet Wars, interference that severed diplomatic channels, triggered chaos, and forced humanity to lock down before they were dragged into annihilation. Rian turned toward the command seat. "Prepare for border crossing. Silent flight." Alden inhaled sharply. "We haven't left human territory in 100 years. "Then it's overdue," Rian replied. "If that station holds the missing link behind the silence, we need it." The lights dimmed as Nexus 01 engaged her stealth lattice. Gravity shifted underfoot as the ship angled toward the border, a shimmering river of folded starlight marking the edge of humanity's isolation. On the other side stretched the Orion expanse, unpredictable, volatile, filled with powers that believed humanity had vanished or weakened beyond relevance. Rian addressed the crew. "We remain unseen unless firing becomes unavoidable. No transmissions. No active beacons. We observe, we retrieve, we return." "Aye, Commander," the bridge answered. The ship entered the border. The hull shimmered once, then slipped through the frontier like a ghost. Beyond it, the expanse opened into a vast sprawl of nebulae and drifting star remnants. The collapsed star pulsed dimly like the bruise of a wound. The abandoned outpost orbited a cold moon not far from the anomaly. The station came into view, silent, dark, scarred. Scorch marks lined its hull. A fracture ran along its rotational spine, as though something massive had torn through it decades ago. But lights flickered inside, faint, unsteady, very alive. Rian's heartbeat steadied. Someone truly remained. Before he could issue docking commands, Haru stiffened. Commander, movement! A scouting vessel hovered behind the moon's shadow. Vashtari? Rian's chest tightened. The last species humanity wanted to meet first. Alden said. If they detect us. They won't, Rian said. Maintain passive drift. The Vashtari ship swept its sensors across the debris field. Its angular hull shimmered with violet panels, built for intimidation as much as reconnaissance. Rian watched its movement pattern. Searching for something, he murmured. Or someone. The vessel fired a small volley into the station's hull, testing reactions. No response. The Vashtari seemed satisfied. It transmitted a burst of encrypted code toward deep space, then retreated into a hyperlane fracture. Rian exhaled slowly. Dock us. Quietly. The ship glided forward and latched onto the station's damaged port. Rian suited up with Alden and Haru, their helmets lighting with internal displays. As the airlock cycled open, a stale, metallic scent flooded in. Inside the station, corridors were half-lit and heavy with dust. Emergency lights blinked along the walls. Burned consoles lay scattered across the deck. Rian scanned for life signs, 3 faint signatures, clustered deep inside. They moved carefully, turning corners with rifles raised. A soft sound echoed through a side hall, a cough. Rian approached the chamber. A shattered cryo unit flickered, its frost melting into slow drips. A man lay inside, gaunt yet conscious enough to whisper. You're real. Rian knelt. Commander Rian Salas, Vanguard Fleet. How long have you been here? The survivor swallowed with difficulty. Long, after everyone left. We thought rescue, centuries off. His cracked lips trembled. The Vashtari sealed our transmissions. They forced the silence. Wanted us cut off. Alden's eyes sharpened. You're certain? The survivor nodded weakly. They accessed our proto-relay. Injected quantum noise. Made it look like we shut down everything. Rian's pulse surged. Proof. After a century of speculation, they finally had a lead. Why target this station? Rian asked. It housed predictive algorithms from the Quiet Wars. They feared what we built. His gaze unfocused. And now, they're coming back to finish it. A tremor shook the corridor. Dust drifted from the ceiling. Haru checked her console. Commander, the Vashtari Armada just emerged from hyperlane fractures. Multiple destroyers. They're en route. Rian stood as the floor rumbled again. The survivor grabbed his arm weakly. You must warn Earth. Rian met his gaze. We will. But first, we get you out. A deep vibration echoed through the hull, heavy weapons charging. Alden glanced toward the airlock. If they find us, the border will ignite. Rian's decision formed instantly, sharp and unwavering. Then we stay invisible, he said. But if they force our hand, humanity won't hide any longer. The second tremor rolled through the station, stronger than the first. Haru whispered. Commander, they know we're here. Rian lifted his rifle. Then the century of silence ends today. The station shuddered as another impact rippled along its outer hull. Dust drifted down in thin gray sheets, carried on stale currents. Deep below, machinery groaned, old systems protesting the return of violence after nearly a century of stillness. Commander Rian Salas steadied the injured survivor against the wall, while Alden scanned the readout. Life support is degrading, Alden whispered. This place won't hold. Haru's visor brightened with tactical data. 3 Vashtari destroyers are sweeping the area. 1 frigate is approaching the station directly. They're being cautious, Rian said. They expect a trap. Or they're finishing one, Alden muttered. Rian turned to the survivor, thin, pale, exhausted. Focus. I need names. I need details. The man drew a ragged breath. Dr. K.O. Ryden, Predictive Systems Specialist. I was part of the Quiet Analysis Division, Haru stiffened. The team that developed the early threat mapping arrays? Kale nodded. We built algorithms that could anticipate border conflicts before they erupted. Our work frightened certain empires. The Vashtari tried to destroy everything we made. When they failed, they manipulated the entire situation into chaos. Rian listened without blinking. You're saying they crafted the illusion that humanity chose the silence. They corrupted relay networks across several sectors. They used ghost packets to mimic human transmissions shutting down. It looked like we isolated ourselves. Kale coughed, voice cracking. We tried to warn command. They jammed every outbound message. Then they hit the station. A hollow boom rattled the walls. Haru checked the outer feed. Frigate docking sequence initiated. They're coming aboard. Rian stood. We regroup at the airlock. Move. He lifted Kale carefully, and the team advanced through the corridor. Emergency lights flickered in slow, uneven pulses. The air tasted like metal and burnt circuitry. At the intersection near the central hub, Rian stopped. Haru, seal the secondary passageways. Force them down a single approach. No surprises. Haru's fingers danced across her wrist pad. Done. Another strike hammered the structure. Screws rattled loose from ceiling plates. Alden steadied himself against a beam. They're breaching 2 decks down, he said. We'll have minutes. Rian laid Kale against a reinforced wall panel and set a portable shield emitter beside him. Its faint blue shimmer formed a protective arc. Kale slumped but managed a nod of thanks. Rian turned toward his team. The moment they detect us, this escalates to full engagement. We end this quickly and quietly if possible. Alden raised an eyebrow. You think they'll surrender? No, Rian said. But they might hesitate if they realize what we are. The first echo of Vashtari boots reached them, heavy, synchronized, metallic. Haru dimmed the corridor lights. Shadows stretched across the floor like long, reaching fingers. Rian knelt behind a fallen console. His pulse steadied as combat instinct settled in. He felt the tension shift around him, the silence before motion, the cold clarity of a moment that decides futures. The Vashtari emerged through the breach point, tall figures encased in angular armor. Their helms pulsed with visor lines shaped like predatory eyes. They scanned the abandoned station with sharp head movements, as though tasting the air for deception. One soldier raised a device and sent a ripple of scanning energy through the corridor. When it reached Rian's position, Haru's stealth counterpulse neutralized the wave before it could register their presence. The Vashtari stepped deeper inside. Rian flicked 2 fingers, signal for approach. The team moved silently. But a panel behind them sparked. A burst of electricity snapped through the air. The nearest Vashtari soldier spun toward the sound. Rian surged forward. He hit the soldier with a precise strike that sent the armor collapsing inward. The Vashtari crashed to the floor. The others reacted instantly, opening fire with violet pulses that tore chunks from the bulkheads. Alden ducked and returned controlled shots, each one burning through an exposed joint. Haru redirected emergency shutters to create shifting cover. The corridor filled with flashes of light, sparks, and curling smoke. Rian's movements were swift and exact. He closed distance with a second soldier, disarmed him, and sent him into the wall with a forceful kick. The remaining intruder hesitated, just long enough for Rian to level his rifle. Stand down, Rian said in a controlled voice. You have no idea what you're walking into. The Vashtari's response came as a growl. Human weapon signatures confirmed. We were right, you've returned. Before Rian could reply, the soldier triggered an emergency beacon on his gauntlet. Alden cursed. Now the whole armada knows we're here. The soldier lunged, forcing Rian into hand-to-hand combat. The Vashtari fought with the intensity of someone convinced humanity was a threat that had to be crushed quickly. Rian avoided a blade swipe, slammed his palm into the alien's helm, and dropped him. The corridor fell silent again except for the low hum of the shield protecting Kale. Rian checked the pulse of the final soldier, unconscious, stable. He didn't waste time. Haru, Rian said. How long until reinforcements? 5 minutes. Alden frowned. We can't fight a full boarding unit in this condition. Rian already knew the answer. We're leaving. He lifted Cale again. The man's breath rattled, but his grip tightened around Rian's arm. Cale whispered, You must retrieve the data core. Everything we discovered about the relay interference is stored in the central archive. Rian hesitated. Where? Lower deck vault, Cale said. Behind the collapse barrier. Use my clearance imprint. The station shook violently as another barrage struck the hull. Haru swore. If we go down there, we may not get back before they dock a second team. Rian looked toward the airlock where their ship waited. He weighed time, risk, and the importance of the information. He didn't waver. We get the core, he decided. Without evidence, this dies with us. Alden nodded. Then let's move. They advanced through deeper corridors, passing shattered labs and scrawled notes left by the last scientists to stand here. Rian imagined their final days, cut off, hunted, believing humanity might never learn the truth they uncovered. Cale guided them with weak gestures. Down that ramp, the vault's beyond the sealed doors. Haru accessed the lock with Cale's imprint. The system groaned, gears grinding before the door slid open. Inside stood a cylindrical containment unit glowing with pale light. Its surface flickered with encrypted patterns, records from the Quiet Wars, relay tampering proofs, and early warning algorithms. Rian approached it reverently. This changes everything. Before he could lift it, alarms blared across the station. Haru's voice rose. Commander, they boarded the lower deck. They're coming straight for us. Rian secured the core to his harness and turned toward the exit. Back to the ship, he said. Now. As they ran, Cale whispered a final warning. They didn't act alone, the Vashtari had help. Someone else silenced humanity. Rian didn't stop moving. We'll find out who. A metallic roar echoed behind them, enemy soldiers powering up weapons. Alden glanced back. Commander, they're gaining. Rian tightened his grip on Cale. His voice sharpened. Then we outrun them. The corridor lit with enemy fire as Rian and his team sprinted toward the docking bay. Data core secured, truths rising, and humanity's forced silence cracking apart. The vacuum of space greeted Nexus 01 with its familiar cold embrace, but the silence no longer comforted Rian. The moment they detached from the compromised station, the stars beyond the Orion expanse seemed to hum with anticipation. Humanity was no longer hidden, and the galaxy would notice. Cale Ryden sat slumped against the support bulkhead, breathing raggedly. His eyes darted across the core secured at Rian's side, every flicker of the containment unit a reminder of what had been suppressed for nearly a century. They won't stop, the Vashtari. They'll come for it, he whispered. They already are, Rian said, his hands gripping the control rails. And when they do, they'll find out they misjudged humanity. Haru scanned the outer perimeter. Commander, destroyer signatures approaching faster than expected. Sensors indicate 3 frigates closing in on our trajectory. They're attempting a coordinated blockade. Rian's mind calculated probabilities, folding centuries of predictive algorithms into seconds. Engage stealth overlays and set passive drift. Let them come to us without knowing our true capabilities. Alden's jaw tightened. We can't outrun them if they block all exits. They'll trap us. Then they'll learn why humanity never surrendered, Rian said, voice calm but resolute. His eyes flicked to the starfield ahead, imagining the network of fleets and colonies that had grown unseen during the silence. Humanity had evolved, adapted, and built systems no other species could anticipate. This was their moment to reveal the truth. The first frigate materialized from the hyperlane, angular and bristling with weaponry. Its sensors scanned aggressively, probing every thermal signature. Nexus 01 remained undetected. Rian watched the alien ship, noting every rotational pattern, every drift in vector. He keyed a subtle signal to Haru. Pulse the decoy lattice, he commanded. I want them chasing ghosts. Haru's hands moved over the console with surgical precision. The ship's stealth interface shimmered, releasing multiple false signatures. The Vashtari frigate reacted immediately, firing at phantom targets. Explosions lit the void where nothing existed. Rian allowed himself the tiniest, almost imperceptible, smile. "They don't know what hit them," he murmured. But there was no time for celebration. Another sensor alert blinked. A swarm of smaller crafts had dropped from the fringes, moving toward the star cluster they had just left. The Vashtari were relentless. Rian turned to Kale. "We need to understand how far their manipulation goes. Start decrypting the data core now." Kale's fingers danced over his interface gloves. Patterns of interference, decades-old protocols, quantum entanglements hidden in relic systems, everything pointed to deliberate sabotage. "It wasn't just the Vashtari," he said. "Someone else, someone with access to hypernet nodes across multiple sectors, forced humanity into isolation. We were never silent by choice." Rian's eyes narrowed. "And that explains the missing communications, the lost fleets, the abandonment of colonies. It wasn't strategy, it was control." Alden broke in. "So, the galaxy thinks humanity vanished, while someone orchestrated our disappearance. And now the Vashtari plan to finish the job?" Rian's grip tightened on the rail. "Exactly. And it's time we proved they miscalculated." The ship's hull vibrated as enemy fire struck at range. The decoy lattice misdirected most of it, but fragments of plasma tore through auxiliary shields. Sparks danced along panels inside the bridge. Haru's voice cut through the tension. "Impact on the aft port, integrity holding at 78%. Rian made a split-second decision. "We draw them into the dead nebula field ahead. Their weapons will misfire, the density alone will give us cover." The crew moved with seamless precision, following Rian's commands without hesitation. Years of training, decades of preparation during the silence, now bore fruit in quiet, deadly efficiency. As they entered the nebula, visibility dropped. Starship silhouettes blurred, and energy beams refracted unpredictably. The Vashtari pursued, unaware they were threading through a human-designed gauntlet of microgravity anomalies, sensor decoys, and artificially induced plasma currents. Each misstep from the enemy revealed the precision of humanity's hidden hand. "This is only the beginning," Rian said, watching as enemy formations faltered, colliding with one another in chaotic disarray. "Once they realize what we've become, it won't just be a battle, they'll understand their arrogance." Haru reported rapidly, scanning secondary layers of the nebula, detecting multiple micro-signatures. "Something large is moving, cloaked." Rian's pulse accelerated. "Predictive systems?" "Uncertain," Haru replied. "Signal patterns match archived designs from the Quiet Wars, but amplified. This is next-generation tech." Alden muttered under his breath. "They couldn't have built that in 100 years, could they?" "They didn't," Rian said. "We did." Suddenly, the core thrummed with urgency. Kale shouted. "The relay logs, they're being tampered with in real time. Someone is actively trying to erase this record." Rian's voice was calm, precise. "Then we broadcast it. Now." Haru's fingers flew over the console. The encrypted data poured into the ship's transmitter, reaching every human colony, fleet outpost, and observational probe across known space. The information carried centuries of lost knowledge, evidence of interference, and the blueprint for humanity's evolution during the silence. Across the galaxy, stations flickered. Fleets braced as the hidden truth surfaced. Humanity's disappearance had never been voluntary. Humanity had been watched, manipulated, underestimated, and in that misjudgment lay the galaxy's greatest error. Then came the first response, a scrambled Vashtari transmission, shock lacing the distorted audio. "Impossible! Human signatures, returning, they should be extinct." Rian leaned back, allowing himself a breath. "They never understood." Haru glanced at him, wide-eyed. "Commander, they're reacting faster than we predicted. Several factions are moving to intercept the broadcast. The galaxy is waking." Rian's jaw tightened. "Good. Let them wake." Let them see that humanity wasn't silent. We were preparing. The crew adjusted shields as enemy frigates attempted interception. Plasma flares illuminated the nebula, jagged bolts bouncing unpredictably. Rian calculated escape vectors, defensive rotations, and countermeasures almost instinctively. Each movement revealed humanity's depth of knowledge, the culmination of decades hidden from the galaxy's gaze. Kale looked at Rian, awe mixing with exhaustion. I never imagined they'd be ready. They had no choice, Rian said. Every century of silence, every hidden fleet, every calculated delay, it was all to survive the ones who believed we would falter. And now, they'll learn why that was a grave mistake. The Vashtari frigates opened fire, plasma tearing through nebular clouds, but Nexus 01 danced between their blasts with a fluid precision that no other species had witnessed. Each maneuver was deliberate, a statement. Humanity had returned, stronger, smarter, and resolute. Rian spoke quietly, almost to himself. The first wave of their ignorance ends here. Haru's console chimed urgently. Commander! Incoming fleet from the northern hyperlane. Multiple capital ships. They're moving to cut off our route. Rian's eyes focused on the blinking signature. Then we make them understand the cost of misjudging a species that refused to vanish. Prepare for engagement. But remember, we strike only when necessary. Humanity's return is a warning, not a declaration of war, yet. As Nexus 01 maneuvered through the nebula, the transmission continued to spread, and the galaxy held its collective breath. The silence that had lasted 100 years shattered like glass. Humanity had spoken, and the words carried the weight of centuries of preparation, endurance, and quiet strength. Rian's eyes swept the bridge, meeting each of his crew. This is only the beginning. The galaxy will remember why they never underestimated us. The stars outside seemed to shimmer differently now, as if aware. The quiet wars had left echoes, but humanity's return transformed them into a crescendo, a force no one could ignore. And somewhere, deep in the void, Vashtari commanders scrambled, their arrogance crumbling as the truth unfolded. Humanity had returned, and the galaxy would never mistake them again. The void pulsed with distant explosions, silent only to those outside the warp of combat. Nexus 01 emerged from the northern nebula, the data core secure, its hull glowing faintly under emergency lights. Across the Orion expanse, fleets stirred. The galaxy had finally received humanity's message, and the reaction was immediate. Rian Salas stood at the command rail, eyes fixed on the stars beyond. They're mobilizing faster than predicted, he said. Not just the Vashtari. Others are responding, curiosity, fear, and shock all at once. Haru's fingers danced across her console. Capital ships, destroyers, reconnaissance vessels, every faction that had ignored humanity's silence is on alert. The broadcasts are verified, they can't claim it's a false flag. Kao Raiden's face, pale but determined, reflected the glow of the central monitors. We did it. For the first time in a century, the galaxy knows the truth. They can't twist it anymore. Rian didn't answer immediately. His gaze shifted to the distant signature on the outer sensors, a massive Vashtari dreadnought advancing toward the collapsed star's coordinates. Its hull was bristling with weapons systems capable of stellar annihilation, the infamous Axiom Lance, rumored during the Quiet Wars, now operational. They brought it. Alden muttered, voice tight. The weapon the galaxy feared the most. Rian's jaw set. And they'll use it to claim humanity's destruction as justification for their own dominance. Not if we can stop them. Commander, Haru said, they're locking onto the core. If they capture it, the Axiom Lance will fire. Rian's pulse sharpened. Then we board. All hands ready. This ends on our terms. The team moved with practiced precision. Kao guided them to the lower decks, where emergency suits had already been activated. The docking clamps of Nexus 01 engaged with the dreadnought's exterior bay. Magnetic grips locked their boots as they stepped onto the alien vessel, shadows moving in the labyrinthine corridors of unknown architecture. The interior was harsh, angular, and intentionally disorienting. Rian noted the pressure conduits, energy fields, and sensor nodes as they advanced. Every detail would inform humanity's strategy in the battle to come. They encountered the first guards at a junction, a squad of heavily armored Vashtari officers. Rian gestured. The team engaged silently. Energy staves clashed with human rifles, the corridor vibrating with impact. Rian moved like a conductor, each strike precise, each step purposeful. Within moments, the path to the control nexus was clear. At the command chamber, Archon Veskar Thule awaited, flanked by elite guards. His armor gleamed under violet lighting, and his presence radiated authority and arrogance. Solace, Veskar's voice echoed, distorted through amplification. I expected ghosts. Instead, I see humans who believe themselves gods. Rian stepped forward, eyes unwavering. We are not gods, Thule. But you miscalculated. Humanity was never silent. We survived, we adapted, and now we act. Veskar's hand hovered over the weapon controls. The Axiom Lance will ensure your extinction. Once it fires, this entire sector, and your colonies, will be erased. History will call it retribution. Rian's gaze swept the chamber. It will call it what it is, the failure of arrogance. The duel began not with bullets but strategy. Rian deployed microdrones that infiltrated weapon conduits, using gravitational microfields to disrupt targeting sequences. Kale manipulated the alien relay interface, feeding false coordinates to the Lance's firing mechanism. Alden and Haru coordinated suppression of guard reinforcements through precise energy pulses. The dreadnought shuddered. Systems overloaded. Veskar roared, slamming panels and issuing commands. Yet for every move, humanity had already calculated a counter. Every pulse, every countermeasure, every tactical misdirection mirrored the intelligence and preparation of a species underestimated for a century. Rian approached Veskar directly. You forced us into silence. You underestimated our resilience. Now the galaxy will see what you ignored. Veskar lunged with a ceremonial blade, a relic of intimidation rather than efficiency. Rian sidestepped, redirecting the charge into a restraining grip that neutralized the Archon without killing him, yet powerful enough to immobilize his command. Kale keyed the final override. The Axiom Lance shuddered, then folded inward upon itself, neutralized by the precise alignment of quantum encryption that only human physiology could unlock. Every energy surge reversed. The weapon, meant to devastate colonies, remained a dormant relic. Rian stood over Veskar, the glow of human triumph illuminating the chamber. The galaxy will remember, he said softly. Not the fear you inspired, but the strength you tried to suppress. The dreadnought's hull began to fail. Crew and guards fled in chaos. Nexus 01 withdrew, its systems unscathed, as human transmissions spread across interstellar channels. Every colony, every fleet, every station witnessed humanity's resurgence. Rian addressed the galaxy through the broad net. His voice was calm but resolute. Centuries of silence were never surrender. Humanity endured, evolved, and prepared. Those who believed we had vanished will now witness the cost of underestimating our resolve. We return not as conquerors, but as guardians of truth. The next threat will not come from us, but from those who attempted to force our silence. Across the stars, alien fleets paused, recalculated, and reevaluated. Empires that had dismissed humanity as inconsequential now faced a species unified, intelligent, and resolute beyond imagination. The Quiet War's lessons had matured into a warning: underestimate humanity at your peril. Veskar, restrained and enraged, glared at Rian. This changes nothing. Humanity will still bow before the galaxy's will. Rian's gaze was unwavering. No. The galaxy bows to truth, not arrogance. We will act only when provoked. But we will never be ignored again. Kale's hand rested on the secured core. And the records, the evidence, everyone will see. Haru scanned distant sensors. Commander, the Armada is retreating. They're recalculating, issuing orders, confusion everywhere. Alden allowed himself a rare smile. Looks like the galaxy just got a lesson in humility. Rian looked out at the void, at the distant stars, at the fleets slowly acknowledging humanity's presence. He felt the weight of centuries lift slightly. Humanity had returned, not as a whisper, not as a ghost, but as a force of reckoning, of intellect, of survival. The crew exhaled collectively. The battle was won, but Rian knew the work had only begun. The architects of humanity's forced silence remained in the shadows, and new challenges would arise. But for now, the galaxy had remembered humanity. Rian's last glance was at the stars themselves. They no longer felt distant or indifferent. They seemed to shimmer with anticipation, as if acknowledging the species that had once disappeared, and now returned. A voice broke the quiet. Kale said softly, "Commander, the message, it's being received everywhere. Every fleet, every colony, they know." Rian nodded, a faint but firm smile crossing his face. "Then let them remember. Humanity returns." The stars beyond the Orion expanse glimmered differently now, streaked with light and hope. Silence had ended. Humanity had returned. And the galaxy would never make the same mistake again.